Hey, good morning. Scott Luton here with you on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's show. On today's episode, we're speaking with a couple of business leaders really about sustainability and climate change, some big issues that industry is grappling with. The interview is part of our continuing collaboration with the Automotive Industry Action Group. You can learn more at AIAG.org. In fact, both of our guests here today are keynotes at the AIAG Corporate Responsibility Summit. So stay tuned as we look to increase your supply chain IQ. Quick programming note before we get started here. If you enjoyed the live stream, we invite you to check out our podcast wherever you get your podcast from. I want to welcome in my fearless co-host for today's session, Mr. Greg White, serial supply chain tech entrepreneur and trusted advisor. Greg, good morning.
And apparently supply chain adjutant today. So already having a Twitter battle on LinkedIn. Hey, I'm doing great.
Passionate.
Great to have. We've had some great discussions so far, and it's just great to have Al and Lecedra here with us. I'm really looking forward to this topic, as you know.
We are too. And as we all know, passionate discussion and debate moves the industry forward. So I'm glad you're doing the industry a service this morning already, Greg. All right. Want to welcome in our featured guest, as Greg alluded to. First up, Al Hildreth, Global Energy Manager at General Motors. Al, good morning.
Good morning.
Great to have you. Really have enjoyed our prep conversations and getting to know you and your thought leadership better. So can't wait for you to share that with our audience. And also Lecedra Welch, Program Manager, Environmental Sustainability for the Automotive Industry Action Group. Again, AIAG. Lecedra, pleasure to get to know you as well. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm great. Thank you. Good morning.
You're like one of the AIAG's secret weapons, and we have seen that in our prep conversation. So looking forward to you as well sharing some of your expertise and experiences on today's live broadcast.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. So, Greg, we're going to dive in pretty quick here. We want to start with getting, giving our audience the same opportunity that we've had, which is getting to know Al and Lecedra a little bit better. So, Lecedra, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and give us a little snapshot of your professional journey.
Okay. Well, again, good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Lecedra Welch, Program Manager, Environmental Sustainability at AIAG. I've been with the organization a little over 6 years now. Prior to working at AIAG, I've been in waste management for almost 15 years. So, but again, I'm happy to include this podcast in our AIAG's first ever virtual summit, which is next week, April 28th and 29th. This summit started back in 2011 as a way to bring awareness to social and environmental issues that were becoming increasingly important in the supply chain. So that's really
appreciate the work that y'all are doing to give a forum and give a spotlight to these issues that we need to be tackling as business leaders and organizations. So love that component to the AIAG mission. All right. So Al, same question for you. Tell us about yourself, where you're from, and give us, 40 years at GM is tough to put in 2 minutes, but tell us about your professional journey.
So I have to do this quickly. So I've also been married for over 40 years too. So those kind of have gone together. Yeah. Same wife too. I have to clarify that. And we have 3 kids, 5 grandchildren. I've worked for GM over 40 years and in a number of different locations. Worked in Spring Hill, Tennessee, Detroit, Korea, Seoul, South Korea, and Germany. And so I had a lot of fun in each of those because I really am passionate about sustainability. I'm currently the Global Energy Manager for General Motors and been working with AIAG for about 10 years since I moved back from Korea. And they're a great organization that helps us collaborate with our supply chain, which, as I describe our missions, a good portion of it is in our supply chain. So really enjoyed working with those folks, and gives us the opportunity as OEMs to collaborate on something that's not really competitive. Sustainability and clean environment is something that we're all endeavor for. And so just glad to be here today and share some things about General Motors.
Yeah. And, we value Al very much, all the volunteers that we have, but we definitely value Al. He's been very active and he's been a great asset to AIAG. So we definitely appreciate him very much.
Great point. So
Yeah.
Al, before Greg chimes in here and really starts picking your brain on some big topics, I got to ask, the painting behind you, is that a first run edition? Tell us more.
Yeah, so it's much larger than the real Mona Lisa. We my wife and I used to travel to Paris. It was only 4 hours from where we lived in Frankfurt, and went to the Louvre quite a bit, and really kind of was just enthralled with the painting. And then we moved to Korea. We found it in a underground store, which most of the shopping in Korea is underground, and bought it and brought it home with us. So it's been around, and I really appreciate it. Her eyes really do follow you too when you're in the Louvre and walking around looking. That was the first thing I tested, as an engineer.
Does it still work on that one?
It does actually, yes. Which
that'll keep people out of your office.
Yeah, that doesn't keep the grandkids out. They love it here.
No.
So.
That's good. All right, well, let's shift gears a little bit and dive into this topic. So we're here to talk about climate change. Big topic for a short interview. But, a lot of organizations are concerned about it. Obviously, the whole world is concerned about it. And I feel like with what you all have done at GM, and you particularly, Al, you can offer a lot of knowledge to not only the attendees here at the Corporate Responsibility Summit, but to companies all over. And we'd like to share that with them. So tell us a little bit about how you guys are taking action there.
Sure. So I feel very fortunate to work for a company that has a vision of zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion. We believe climate change is real, and we have methods in place. We have goals, targets. We interface with our supply chain, and really the big emission for us, as you'll see in the next slide, is our vehicles. So when people drive our vehicles, that's our largest emission of carbon. But secondly, our supply chain is number two. However, we feel that with electrification of our vehicles, which is one of our company goals, is to be all electric vehicles in the future, that really our supply chain will probably be our majority of emissions. So you see kind of our operations, which we have a lot of activities and goals in our operations, reductions. We do energy treasure hunts. We have it integrated into our business plan, sustainability, energy, carbon, water reduction. But it's only 2% of our carbon footprint. Logistics is huge. There's great savings out there in logistics operations and efficiency in those areas. But if you look at our use of vehicles, which is our largest one right now, as that reduces with renewable energy, we have an RE100 commitment for our company operations, and we're working with utility companies, and we want to expand that quicker throughout the rest of the world. Then our supply chain will really be our next biggest carbon footprint. And so engaging with them through organizations like AIAG, CDP is another one that we engage our supply chain in. Mm-hmm. And so we've kind of figured out the impacts based on a part. We've done life cycle analysis of carbon emissions, water emissions, land use. And so we kind of know where the major parts are. And we also know that it really is kind of a minor piece in our first tier. Well, that's the ones we have a relationship with, we have a contract with, but it's only about 15% of our total carbon emissions. So we really have to kind of engage our tier one suppliers, make them understand that we're interested in decarbonizing our industry, and figure out ways to do that. And it may be things like renewable energy is going to be a huge reduction for us. As you see, the two biggest industries are electric generation and primary steel. There's the ones that are major contributors. And so that, as well as sustainable materials, like recycled steel versus primary steel in areas where it's applicable, and other types of substitutions, as well as lightweighting. Lightweighting our vehicle provides us with less materials, which is good, as well as increased miles per gallon.
Al, real quick,
sure.
For folks that may not know what lightweighting is, give us a couple of examples there.
Sure. So it can be, using high strength carbon steel, which takes weight out of the vehicle. Structural pieces. Our supply chain's been very active with us in that, especially with like the new C8 Corvette. We use lightweighting techniques, and so less material and better fuel efficiency is really what helps us in those areas.
So, we talked with Bruno Sarda at CDP, who you mentioned, and they're, a great clearinghouse and facilitator of efficiency and just recognition of what your issues are. And we also talk to a lot of people on our shows about, you said tier one, but, every level of the supply chain, and just making them aware of their impact on on the environment. And I know you have an active effort there, but you also mentioned treasure hunts, right? So is that a vehicle by which you help companies recognize where their opportunities are? Can you tell us a little bit about these treasure hunts?
Yeah, so we do energy treasure hunts in our own facilities for our operations. It's a great method. Energy Star is a standardized process that you can get free information for. Become an Energy Star partner it's free. The Department of Energy also has resources that can help you with energy treasure hunts. But I've done personally 100 of them globally, and some at other suppliers. We have people on our team that go to other suppliers, and we invite suppliers to our treasure hunts so that they can learn the process. We also did one for a customer, which was a lot of fun too. So we find them to be great opportunities for energy savings, water reduction, and carbon savings.
And Energy Star has a standard practice there.
Yeah, it's a free standardized process. It's typically a 2.5 day. Sometimes large sites we may take 4 days if we do a powertrain facility as well as an assembly plant, but we have a lot of fun with it. So we find typically we can go into a facility and find $1 million a year savings, which is it's really rewarding, and save energy.
Wow. So when you identify these opportunities, so I've been a part of rattlesnake hunts from a lean standpoint, where you identify instant improvement opportunities, and then you prioritize, and then you get out there and make it happen, right? And you manage those micro projects. Talk to us about, when you do these energy hunts, the follow up and making sure that the savings and the gains are captured. What does that look like?
Yeah, so the action plans that we create are really the important things, because just finding the opportunities doesn't do you any good, but you really have to implement. So we use energy performance contracting as a mechanism where we can have a contractor come in, provide us with the energy savings, and then we share the savings with them over time. That's one option. We also use our own money, and we have dedicated teams at each site that are really focused on energy, water, and carbon savings. So as each site's got a target that they have to meet, they know they have to come up with a sufficiency plan to meet that target. And what we find from energy treasure hunts is really one thing that's helpful in them meeting their targets.
Love that. I love how practical that is, Greg.
Yeah, and structured. Honestly, I didn't know that Energy Star had developed a framework for that. I think that's really important. We'll put that in the show notes so that other companies can access that in case they're not aware. I would imagine, Lecedra, that they're probably pretty well aware of this, but it can never hurt to add more information, right?
Absolutely.
And so one of the things that's kind of, you'd think now, well, we can't do energy treasure hunts, but we can do virtual ones. We have systems. We have a system called Energy OnStar, which looks at the energy use. It looks at our HVAC systems, which are major contributors to energy use in a facility. And we can look at that virtually and find out, we have energy dashboards that tell us where some opportunities are, and we can pinpoint. And when we are able to get back into our facilities, which we're hoping will be shortly, we'll be able then to implement and get those savings. Love
that. As we have seen in with robotics and automation firms, by the way, or for an example, where they'll go and do an assessments, and they're not letting this current environment stop that. They're doing virtual assessments. So I love to hear how, the need is still there. even though we're in this pandemic environment and it's challenging for so many people and so many operations and companies, still finding a way to get, GSD, get stuff done. These are stories that we love to hear about here, right, Greg?
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And Lecedra is doing a little bit of an audit in her office right now.
Yeah.
Pretty much alone, her and the IT person.
Yeah.
Making it happen. So I bet you can get an interesting assessment of how energy is consumed, even where you don't have robotics or mechanics and that sort of thing operating in a facility. Just the presence of human beings and their activities changes the energy consumption structure as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Sure does.
Just having the visibility into how much energy you're using, not being able to go there and look at meters in an online system. We use that. We send out a daily report to all our plant managers and say, here's how you performed today, compared to targets. And we're getting really, really high percentage reductions in energy because of that.
So before we went live here on today's episode, we were talking about supplier development. And I imagine my hunch is that GM was really a trailblazer in supplier development, as was the industry. You've already laid out a few examples where it seems like you're not only looking within the four walls, but looking upstream and downstream for overall end-to-end efficiencies. Speak more to the importance of supplier development programs right now in the era of global supply chain.
Yeah, so AIAG's assisted us with this, as well as other organizations, and having suppliers that are up to speed with what our goals are, what our vision is, and supporting us in those areas is really important. Obviously in the quality side, the logistics and delivery, cost, but now sustainability. And so sustainability includes making a profit, which is really good. So we are really looking forward to expanding this in our supply chain. I was just on a webinar earlier with CDP and about 100 of our suppliers, talking to them about ways that we can work with them to improve sustainability. And it really requires a collaborative effort with them.
You touched on something that's really important, and that's that whatever effort we undertake to try and confront climate change or save the environment, anything, it has to be economically feasible. Look, we know that GM wants to do the right thing. We also know that in order for GM to continue to do the right thing, you have to make money. Right. So we have to have an equal effort on making these conservation efforts as economical and cost effective as possible. Right.
Great point. Great point, Greg. And that's really, I'm not sure what y'all have been seeing, but it seems like in the last couple of years in particular, that point has really dawned on a lot of folks of how we can really get sustainable action in these critical areas where it positively impacts all shareholders. So good, Greg, I appreciate you bringing that up. So Al, I'm going to pivot over to Lecedra, and I love how y'all, just in this interview, clearly y'all got a close collaboration, a great relationship, symbiotic, and what I love that AIAG is doing is serving as an outstanding platform to get best practices from one of the global automotive manufacturing leader. And that is so important right now, especially in this environment where business leaders are really looking hard for how to break through, this uncertain environment we're navigating through. So with that said, so don't go anywhere, Al. With that said, I want to bring Lecedra back into the conversation. And Lecedra, I'd love for you, we're big fans. Supply Chain Now, this is our, I think, second event we've collaborated with AIG on. We love the practical can-do. We're going to figure it out, and we're going to share a lot of information with the industry that's so baked into the AIAG DNA. But for the 3 or 4 folks out there that may not have heard of AIAG, speak more to the value proposition of getting involved in some of the resources that the organization offers.
Okay. So AIAG, we are a not-for-profit organization where OEMs, suppliers, service providers, and academia, we work collaboratively to create solutions that drive down cost and complexity for the automotive supply chain. And we develop solutions that benefit the supply chain, and it helps deal with their impacts. We do it by 3 different ways. We either have events like we're doing now, which is prepares for our virtual event, which is next week. We have trainings that we do, and we also have publications. We also have numerous work groups, 3 areas of expertise. We got corporate responsibility, and we have supply chain, which I know you have done some podcasts with Jim, who is our supply chain project manager, program manager.
Jim Ligio.
Yep.
Salt of the earth.
He's an awesome person to work with, as well as our quality area, which we have 2 program managers, which is Brian Martinson and Karen Crutch. So we have many work groups that the suppliers and the OEMs can lend their voices to some of the emerging issues that are out there. So in our environmental sustainability area, we have our overall sustainability work group. We have our greenhouse gas work group, which Al chairs. We have our benchmarking work group. And then we also have a new ad hoc work group on waste management. So this is where we tackle the emerging issues that are surrounding these areas, and we work to develop those solutions that benefits all levels of the supply chain. So we definitely implore and we encourage participation, in order to tackle these issues out here. We need your help.
Absolutely.
Your voice. We need your voice.
Well, Lecedra, we are again, we're very partisan here. We're big fans of AIAG. We've seen what y'all do. We've seen the impact, and we're sharing AIAG.org, the website,
Yes.
home site there. But one big move that can't be overlooked, and Greg, we've seen folks get really opportunistic during these times, right? And then we've seen other folks take the other move and say, you know what? There's a lot of people and business leaders struggling. They're looking for good information and insights, whether it's related to COVID-19 or if it's related to what I'll call normal times, if that exists still these days. Greg, speak to when AIAG took this summit and made it an open to the public free event, how big of a move was that?
Well, it was big in a lot of ways. First of all, this was originally, and all of the attendees who had already signed up recognized that this was a physical event at one time, right? And and I think the team at AIAG acted rapidly to recognize the seriousness of the situation with our seismic societal disruption and global pandemic, and switched quickly to a virtual event, which Lecedra, you all had already been planning for future events, maybe next year. I don't know exactly.
We were trying to find a way to take our trainings and our events virtual. So with the pandemic, it kind of allowed us to work faster to achieve that.
Forced you to work faster, right? I mean, really, it really is impressive what you all did to one, recognize that this needed to happen badly enough that that we needed to take it virtual in order to make sure that it occurred, and 2, to make it open to literally everyone. I know not everyone will attend, but everyone who has any interest in the automotive trade can participate in this thing. I just think that's a big leadership move.
Yes.
Agreed. So, hey, Al, I'm going to bring you back to the conversation.
Sure.
One of the common themes in this conversation here today that clearly is emerging is getting outside the 4 walls, whether it is within GM and its supply chain and how you're developing all nodes of that global supply chain, and you have for 40 years, or if it's AIAG and how they're helping to facilitate different different levels of professionals, different aspects of supply chain and quality and corporate responsibility. They're helping serve as a vehicle for those conversations and that dialogue that has to take place for the industry, global industry, to get better. Al, speak to just how important in 2020 it is to get outside of these 4 walls and have these types of discussions.
Yes, that's a great point. And, so many of our suppliers are common between auto OEMs. And, although we can't work together on competitive issues, we can work through organizations like AIAG, Energy Star, Department of Energy, they can bring industries together to find, to identify best practices and sustainability, to include supply chain in that, which all of those organizations have reach out to the supply chain, and service providers too. So there's people that, they're not our suppliers, but they can provide services, and we can include them. And AIAG, that's kind of their third wing is service providers, which can help us in energy efficiency and collaboration as well.
Yep, great point. And Lecedra, if you could speak to the same subject here today, the need to get out and connect with folks and not stay so. You got to take the blinders off, right, Lecedra?
Yeah, you really do. I agree with what Al said. You have to.
Yep,
absolutely.
And you had industry, like you said on the front end. You were involved in industry, I think waste management, that sector, prior to joining AIAG, right?
Yes.
And it seems like we're seeing, especially in the waste. I was reading the other day about the impact that the current pandemic environment is having on the waste management industry, and it seems like there's a lot of maybe newfound levels of best practice and information sharing in that sector as well. It seems. I don't know if you're still got your finger on the pulse of that industry.
Not as much as I would like to. Hopefully, with this new waste work group that we're trying to start here at AIG, I can kind of get back in the fold and, be back in the know-how of things that are happening in the waste management world.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
All right. So one final question as we start to wind down here. Greg, what do we want to make sure we connect? Speaking of connecting, we want to make sure we get our audience connected with Al and Lecedra, right?
Yeah, well, AIAG is such an important organization, and I think critical to the automotive industry. And the key part of AIAG is action group, right? I mean, that's one thing that we have clearly seen in this association is lots of action.
Yep.
So we want to make sure that folks can get in touch with you. And so, Lecedra, let's start with you. I'm going to flip the script a little bit. Let's start with you and tell folks how they can get in touch with you and how they can participate and contact AIAG.
You had the website up not too long ago, but for more information on corporate responsibility, you can just go to aiag.org and click on corporate responsibility. There you're going to find lots of information, not just on the environmental areas that I manage, but also the social areas that Tanya Bowden, who is the director of corporate responsibility, manages, as well as other areas of AIAG, which day 2 will focus on the social aspect. So please tune in and continue for AIAG on day 2, which will focus on the social areas, where day 1 obviously focus on environmental. On our website, you'll also find resources to assist you on mitigating your cybersecurity risks, which is also a big, huge project for AIAG, which is an increasing concern for everyone. We're also looking to do a virtual event for cybersecurity coming in the next couple months. Your listeners may also be interested to know that the companies may meet a criteria for free AIAG membership. So please visit our website, and if you want to contact me, you can contact me at cr@aiag.org for more information on any of the initiatives we talked about today.
Great. Thanks, Lecedra. All right, Al, other than your obvious security station at the Louvre,
right?
How can folks contact you?
So feel free to pass out my email address, alfred.j.hildreth@gm.com. And we're always, welcoming, talking to folks, and we find great business processes that are out there. From our supplier standpoint, again, we're engaging with you through CDP, through AIAG, Suppliers Partnership for the Environment, and others, and always looking for new processes and environmental. And one thing I might say about this current times that we're in, that this I think is really pointed to a glimpse into the future of what, sustainability could really provide us. There's people that are swimming in the canals of Venice, and I've been there, and I wouldn't have swam in them, but they're very clean right now. People are seeing the Himalaya mountains, so they're kind of getting a glimpse of, boy, if we could decarbonize in the future, this is what the world would look like, and I think that's really going to help sustainability in the future.
Great point. There's so much more we can't get to given the time. We'll have to have y'all back on. And really on that note, Lecedra, as we talked about, we look forward to facilitating a live stream post-event, and we'll get some AIAG team members sharing some of the key takeaways from a gathering of some of the most established thought leaders in the corporate responsibility world. One other point, you mentioned Tanya Bolden. Talk about folks that get stuff done. I think she's leading off the keynote. By the time folks see this, she will have, I think, opened the summit coming up, and she has been an incredible leader through these new events and new vehicles and new ways of serving industry. Right?
Yes.
All right.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you, Al and Lecedra. Before we wrap up, Greg, I got to get one key takeaway from you before we wrap things up here today.
This hits my hot button. Anything where we're talking about sustainability or ethicality or anything in supply chain is really important. I really appreciate what Al is doing. Obviously, what Lecedra, you and your team at AIAG are doing. And I know there's a lot of work ahead of us, but I feel like you all have a great process. You've got great support mechanisms with CDP and some of the other organizations out there. And I can't say anything but thank you for what you're doing, for recognizing this and continuing to reach out to try and really change things. There are a few companies on the planet that can have as much reach and as much impact on this matter as GM.
Great point. Greg, that's a great point to wrap up on. So big thanks to our guest here today, Al Hildreth, Global Energy Manager with General Motors, a 40-year career of making an impact. Al, thanks so much for joining us.
Welcome. Thank you. It's been fun.
Absolutely. We'll do it again. Lecedra Welch, Program Manager for Environmental Sustainability at AIAG. Check out AIAG.org to find ways of getting engaged and helping make a big impact. So thanks so much, Lecedra.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, both of you.
To our audience, be sure to check out a wide variety of industry thought leadership we have at supplychainnowradio.com. Find us and subscribe in terms of our podcast, wherever you get yours from. On behalf of the entire team here, Scott Luton wishing you a wonderful, successful week ahead. Stay safe, but know this, that there are much brighter days ahead, and we'll see you next time here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.